Okay. So I'll start today with the works of a river. Most of the earth is covered by various agents of erosion. They are air, running water, glacier, and sand. And of course, somewhere you will have the sea waves. But out of all of these, the river is the most common agent of erosion that you see around you. Generally, if you belong to any part of the world, you will surely have a river near you. So we'll see how river acts as an agent of erosion, and we'll also see what type of landforms does it produce. So first we'll understand how a river originates and how it goes and meets the sea. So most of you might have seen, if you have seen, there are some hills in a given landscape.
Okay.
They will be around 500 meters or 600 meters. If you talk of the Western Ghats, they are around 1,000 to 2,000 meters above mean sea level. But if you talk about the Himalayas, they are even more than 5,000, 6,000 to 8,000 meters above mean sea level. So all around the world, you see that mountains are of various heights, but they all have rivers flowing through. So rivers might originate somewhere from a hill peak, and it crosses this landscape from here. Then somewhere it comes down to
Yes.
uh, the ground. So it's a plain, and then even plainer than this is where it meets the sea. Are you disconnected, ma'am? I can see you. So an average life of a river is, it starts from the mountains or hills, as may be the case, and it goes down, it crosses some landscape, some part of the ground, like a plain or a plateau, and it goes and meets the sea. Now this distance that it travels may be different. In some cases, it can be few hundred kilometers, like we see in the Western Ghats, where the rivers originate in the Western Ghats and they cross and meet the Arabian Sea, traveling hardly for a distance of around 600 to 700 kilometers, or some are even shorter than that. On the other hand, you see rivers like Ganga and Yamuna, which originate from the Himalayas, and they travel a distance of around 2,500 kilometers to 3,000 kilometers, and they meet the sea in Bay of Bengal. So this distance is different, and it is controlled by various factors like the relief of the place and so on. But what we now are going to learn is what landforms does a river form in this journey, whether it may be 700 kilometers or it may be 3,000 kilometers, or in case of Amazon and Nile in the world, Amazon in Brazil and Nile in Africa, it travels for around more than 6,000 kilometers. So this distance is governed by lots of factors. But then the work that is done, some rivers do very extensive work because they have a long distance to travel. Some rivers don't do such extensive work, and because they have a very short uh, distance to travel. Also, you will see that the rivers, they carry themselves erosion. They carry some sediments with them. For example, if a river is coming from this here, what it does is that it excavates the material that is there in the mountains, that is the soil or rock particles. So what it does is that it excavates like this. So there is this excavation by the river, this plucking of the material of the mountain or the rocks around it is known as erosion. So what it is doing is that it is eroding this material along the way that it is traveling.
Okay.
And that is why the river is known as an agent of erosion, because it is eroding. So similarly, there are other agents of erosion, and a river is one of them. Running water is one of them. So this is known as erosion. Now what happens is that when it leaves the hills, when it is in the hills, this part of the river, when it is in the hills, it is full of speed. It is full of speed, it is full of energy, it is running with a very high speed. So its volume also is large, it is running very fast, and therefore it is said to be in its youth. So this stage is called the youth of the river. Once it crosses this hills and it somehow comes to a plain, somewhat plain, not exactly plain, but a somewhat plain region, like the Ganga Yamuna plains, like the Uttar Pradesh or Bihar part of India, if you see, then this part here is known as the middle stage of a river. And in the last, when it meets the sea, so somewhere near before meeting the sea, it is known as the old stage of the river. So we must keep in mind that in these three stages of river, just like the stages of life of a man, the characteristics of the river's speed and the sediments it carries is different. For example, if you are young, you can do a lot of work. On the other hand, if you are old, you tell your maybe your grandchildren or people around to carry out your work, because you are old, you cannot do all your work yourself. Similarly, is the case with the river. When it is in its youth stage, it has a lot of energy, it has a lot of speed in its water, and therefore it makes a lot of landforms. So here it makes a landform which is known as the V-shaped valley. And when there is a change in the slope, you can see here there is a change in the slope like this. It can make something called as waterfall, which we all are aware of, and we love to go and visit one. So these are some of the, I'll show you some pictures. I have some pictures to share with you, which will give you an idea. This is an image of a river coming from the hills. And now I'll show you the image of a V-shaped valley. This is how a river is when it is going from, it's coming from the hills and it's going down towards the plains. So it forms a V shape like this. And because it is not a wide river like we know it in the form of when we see it in the plains, but it is more of a stream, and it's a very thin river. It's not a very broad river. So because it is a thin river, it doesn't have a lot of wide waters in it, but it has a longitudinal work that it does more. So it carries out a headward erosion and also some lateral erosion, that is erosion from the sides and erosion in the upfront, in the front part of the river as it is going it's going forward, it's moving forward. So this is an example, and I also show you a waterfall. So this is how a waterfall is formed when the river is changing its slope. There is a change in the slope. So this is due to the local relief. So there may be more than one waterfall, or there may be a series of waterfalls. If there is a series of waterfalls, then it is known as cascades. And if there are lots of waterfalls, when there are more than one river in the same landscape, then there are rapids. If they are all falling from one slope to the another, there is a change in the slope in the landscape, then it is known as a rapids. But if there is a series of continuous fall in the slope, like a terrace or a step, just like we have a staircase, then it is known as a cascade. So here you can see a waterfall where there is a change in the slope.
Okay.